when Eddie was praying, it was just such a powerful prayer. And, I just felt that. I wanted to get up and, it's outside of my norm. I'm uncomfortable. Pastors told Josiah, tell Will to sit up front. I'm like, sit up front? Like, I don't want to sit up front. That's not comfortable. I want to sit in my comfortable chair and block Connie from seeing anything. Yeah, she's always smacking me upside the head. I make fun of people. I'll be like, hey, can you take your hat off? And oh, that's your head. Okay. But what an honor and a blessing. Thank you, Pastor Nick. We're praying for you. If you're watching, we really miss you from being here. Thank you for the opportunity to share a part of the Bowman family's life. It's such an honor and a blessing. I'm used to scheduling the guys to go up to do the tour portion, and I got nice and comfortable sitting back watching. And the pressure's on, and I have to say I am nervous a little bit in that. But what an awesome opportunity to be here in this place, right? I think Eddie really tapped. It's cool. It's really cool. You sit back, and I spent this week between my job and family, and I wanted to put together this phenomenal, presentation and whatnot, and the Lord just pulls it all apart, right? And says, no, it's going to be this way and whatnot. So, man, those lights are bright. I'm going to be sweating. I'm glad I didn't put that tie on. But, yeah, he kind of pulled apart. I heard Eddie, some words in what Eddie shared and with Pastor Tikva, that word see, re'eh, to see and to know that the Lord's watching and he's not just watching, but watching over us and helping and guiding Will along because Lord knows I need that help, all the time. As I speak through what I'm going to share with you guys, maybe you'll see parts of it. There was so much in that little 2-minute clip there. If you saw the blessing, the children, the families, community together. This is and I love when that. What I got was when the little kid pointed to the star. That was that little light that everyone could see and whatnot. And I was like, that's pretty cool because that's what you are. Is that light that everyone can see, and people are going to point and say, look at what I see. Can you see it? So that's a little something special I wanted to share. If we want to go to the first, do I have control? Yeah. And I'm going to have to learn. Oh, there we go. So it's the Bowman family, all right? It's not really about the Bowman family. It's about the family that we've encountered. I feel like, it's not just about the Bowman. It's about the family in general, God's people, God's family, and whatnot, and what he's put together for us. And I love what Pastor shares about his favorite book, right? What's his favorite book? Leviticus. And his favorite book is, I feel like, a part of our life story, which is the Bowman family's way to God and then our walk with God as we've arrived here in our family here all together. And in that, I discovered in our story there's a time of preparation and restoration. And that restoration for my family is continuing. As my brother, for example, was just here a week ago from Washington, D.C., and that was the first time for us, me and my brother, to spend time together on an extended period here in Florida and whatnot. So I thought that was pretty neat. He brought his fiance with him. They came. Many of you met him and whatnot, and he's trying to find his way. My brother just recently told me, and I need to get my stuff in gear because he asked that we set up a Bible study. Somehow, maybe via Zoom or something of that nature, where he's like, well, you know more about the Bible than I do. I was like, well, you might be surprised how much you do know, but I thought that was pretty neat. And again, the restoration piece is happening, right, within at least my family, and I'm pretty sure for you as well. So to start out, and I know some of the writing is small, but to start out, so of course my lovely wife Vanessa, I want to give her all the credit. She doesn't, I'm so tempted to say, "Come on up here, honey," because then I'm gonna pay the price later. But I'm not gonna do that to her. So she doesn't care to come up and do that. But so you have me and Vanessa. We were both born in Washington D.C., right? A few years apart. And we were raised there with our parents was Willie, and my parents were Willie and Sandra Bowman, and her parents were James and Gloria Butler. There we go. So, and these are pictures. So my dad is up on the right corner, top right corner. That's a younger picture, of course, of him. My mom is in the middle. That was my retirement from the Air Force in 2007. It's a picture of my mom. Vanessa's dad is on the lower left. He went on to be with the Lord the year that we left Washington, D.C. That same year, he went on to be with the Lord. And then her mom, which is kind of a darker picture up on the top left, is her mom on the left side with the white top on. And then her grandmother, we called her Nanny, is to her left. That woman was, I tell you, her grandmother was amazing. She was a strong woman. And she traveled. How old was she? She was 83 years old. And she had all of her she traveled on her own across the world, across the globe. So I'll tell you a little funny story with her. One time, I think we were meeting in, where was it? In New York? In Chicago. So she flew to O'Hare, Chicago. Our oldest daughter, Danisha, which I'll show a picture earlier. She was in the Navy Academy, or in the Navy, and she was finishing up her training in the Navy, and Nanny wanted to show up. So she flew out to Chicago from DC, right, on her own. And this is so funny, you know, she shows up, and we're trying to keep in touch with her, so she gets off the plane. And we're trying to track her and whatnot, 'cause, you know, she's a little elderly at the time. And sometimes Nanny, I call it the butler gene. This is my wife's maiden name. They have a butler gene, right? So like one time, this is off that subject, but one time her mom, Vanessa's mom, called me, and she couldn't get her car started, right? She called me up. So I was like, okay, Mom, I'll be there. So I show up, and again, I'm sorry for jumping around, but I show up, and I'm sitting in the car. I say, okay, Mom, what's wrong? And she said, car won't start. I said, okay, so A, B, C, D, right? I look at it, and I was like, put it out of gear and turn the engine, right? So butler gene. So that butler gene kicked in. So it was her mom, her grandmother, rather, shows up in Chicago, and she's walking along, and I said, you know what, I better go to the gate and meet her because, you know, Chicago, O'Hare, anybody ever been to the airport? It can be a little, you know, challenging, crowded, and whatnot, and she's a little up in age. So I go, you know, I go up these escalators, and I'm going to go find her, but good old Nanny, she's making her way. I see her in the distance, she's coming, and I just notice she sees me, right? So I'm going up there, and I'm like, you know, smiling and walking toward her, and she's walking toward me. She walked right by me, right? She walked right by me. I'm like, you know, I'm like looking at her, and I'm like, what's going on? So she keeps walking. She gets to those escalators, so she's got her little bag dragging behind her. And I get behind her and say, hey, let me take that from you, you know? And she's, oh, thank you, you know? So she let me take her bag. She never looked. She let me take her bag, and we go down the escalator and get to the bottom. And I'm ready to mess with her now because she never looked, right? So I go the other way with her bag, right? And then she keeps going, and she sees Vanessa and my mother-in-law and everybody, and she, you know, she's like, this nice person grabbed my bag. Where's my bag? So of course, you know, we walk up to her, and I was like, Nanny, you can't let anybody just take your bag. You know, you never look back. You're like, not butler gene. So, but anyway, I wanted to share. I thought that was pretty funny as well. But yeah, that's Nanny. I wanted to also take time out for a second, and I hope I can hold it together, but salute my mom. I said I wasn't going to do that. But I wouldn't be who I am without my mom, for sure. She is the anchor of our family. I was thinking about her yesterday and how she's the reason why we as a family knew about God. My mom stayed. She just poured it on us, man. Every year, and my dad would back her up. But every year, remember the first 10 Commandments with Yul Brynner and all. You know, it was almost like Christmas. She would shut down the house, right? She'd make her sweet potato pie, you know, and dinner and stuff like that. They'd shut down the house, and we would watch the 10 Commandments. You know how long that movie is? But we would watch it, intermission, you know, you get up, oh, you go get your Kool-Aid and all that, you know, come back and sit down. And, you know, my mom, some more about my mom is that she, you know, I felt like she was a true picture of Christ as I've gotten older and understand what was going on. My dad wasn't the easiest person back then. You're talking the 60s and 70s, you know. He lived a somewhat of a rough life as well, and he brought that into the marriage, into the kids, right, into us. A lot Will had to get out of him. That was from that, right? And my mom held it together, and they have now been married for 49 years. No, I'm sorry, 59 years. 59 years. I just did what my dad did. He was like, we've been married 49 years. I'm like, no, you aren't, Dad. I'm 58. So I just talked to my dad about it. Their anniversary was last month, and he went to go see her. My mom has struggled over recent times, and many of you have seen her when she came down here. A testimony I'd like to say as well, along with my story, is my mom, just to show you how much I love and honor my mom right now, is she was basically given a death sentence, right? A few years back, she had a brain tumor, cancerous tumor behind her eye. And, you know, she was given not long to live, basically 6 months. And we had discovered Beit Tehila by then. And I tell you guys, it was loud and clear as day. The Lord said, go home, right? Go home now. So I did, and I kind of took it as though, you know, I'm going home now to see my mom maybe for the last time and whatnot. And I go home to see her, and I go to see her in the room. And it was one of the hardest things I ever seen. But it was pretty cool because once I walked into the room, there was an energy that happened when I went into the room. And my mom like lifted up, and everybody was shocked that she actually, you know, got this energy because I had an aunt in the room with my sister. And she lifted up and she gave me a big hug. You know, she did not know we were coming and whatnot. And we show up and I walk into the room and I give her a big hug. And I just heard this voice, loud as day. I'm serious, just as much as I'm talking to you. Everything's going to be okay. And I told her that, right, honey? I told her right then and there. I said, Mom, I don't know why, but everything's going to be okay. And I said, I can't explain why or, you know, whatever. But so, again, to kind of speed the story up, my mom was having treatments at the Cancer Treatment Centers of America. I'll tell you, I don't know if anybody's experienced those people, but I know the one in Philadelphia, outstanding. So she had an appointment that was coming up. And along parallel with that, my father had some issues as well, who was not telling anybody about it. He wasn't telling us that he was having some issues going on medically. My dad needed surgery as well. And we discovered that when we started digging and peeling back the onion, as you say. So I'm talking to my brother, and we're trying to figure out how we're going to confront this between my mom and my dad. And so I talked to Vanessa, and we decided to take my mom to Philly. She had another appointment. Usually those appointments were over days, right? She had to get treatments and so forth. So we decided to ride up to Philadelphia with her along with my brother. And my dad, again, to make a longer story short, my dad actually had to schedule surgery at the same time. So the decision was made was to go up to Philly with her from Washington, D.C. It wasn't too bad of a drive. We go there, I asked my wife, I say, would you stay with mom? Of course she would, right? She stays with my mom while she's going through her treatment. I drive back to D.C. from Philly with my brother to take my dad to surgery the next day and whatnot. And I heard the same thing again to tell my dad, because my dad was kind of shaken. And I told him the same thing. Everything's going to be all right. Everything's going to be all right. It's going to work out. It'll be fine. I didn't know how, but I told him it would be fine. So again, the story proceeding, my dad had his procedure. I think it took 2 to 3 days to have what he had done. He recovered. My dad is probably like I am. I don't like the doctors. I don't like hospitals, but I've worked in them my entire adult life in the hospital. But he doesn't like it. My dad, I give him credit, he manned up and he went and had his procedure done. Totally successful, totally okay, right? Totally fine. It was kind of pathetic to see him. I'm not used to him because I've always seen my dad as a strong, burly guy who, could take on the world. But he was just a little puppy dog when we went in, and, me and my brother's comforting him and getting him good to go. So again, spinning the story a little forward, he's good to go. And I said, okay, I'm gonna hurry up and get back to Philadelphia to my mom, right? Because she's going through it, is the best way to put it. So on the way to Philadelphia, again, another loud voice, guys. I'm sitting there in the car, no music, no nothing. I just hear this voice. Take your mom to Florida. Not even take your mom, you're going to take your mom, that's what it was. You're going to take your mom to Florida, and she's gonna dance in the church. So I was like, what? So it was like, you're going to take your mom to Florida. Now, mind you, my mom was in a wheelchair at the time, and she couldn't walk. Or could barely walk anyway. And so I get back to Philly. The first thing I run in, and I don't know, was I think I remember I was kind of smiling, was like, didn't know if she would agree with it, right? Because my mom needed a lot of help. And but I went in and told her, I said, honey, God just told me to take mom to Tampa, to take her to Florida. And that, he's going to heal her and she's going to be dancing in the church. And she was like, smiling, she was like, let's do it, So we're there and we booked tickets. She was done with her treatment and everything, and we booked tickets for 2 days later, right? And we're going through the airport, and it was a little difficult because, again, I'm not used to seeing my parents this way, neither one of them. So we're pushing her through the airport in a wheelchair. We get the special treatment. I got nice special treatment with Charles too, going to Israel. They got the wheelchair action, and they get you in first on the plane. They get you, front seats. They're taking care of you, all the special attention and stuff. And I was like, wow, in the middle of all this, what a blessing. It's like they're really helping us out. So we get her back here, right? And we do. I think we spend a week or two before we actually come to church, and she wants to come to Beit Tehila. So we bring her, and this is in the old building. This is in the building behind us. We bring her in a wheelchair. I don't know if you guys remember that, whoever's been here that long. But we bring her in a wheelchair, and she cannot move that well, We have to pick her up and put her in the chair, stuff like that, And we're dancing around the church, and I could see her, in the chair, and she wants to do it, she couldn't. And you guys can tell in. So she does. After how long? Maybe 6 months? Maybe 6 months or so? It wasn't a year. Maybe 6 months or so, my mom danced in the church. Yeah. And I'll tell you this, even more amazing, which we didn't know what was going on, right? Because when something came on my mom and she wanted to go back. We were begging her to stay, but she wanted to go back. Home, I get it, home, family and everything. She wanted to go back. So we kind of begged her to stay. We wanted to set her up. We were looking at places for her to stay, look at houses and everything, you know. But she was determined to go back. So she walked, by the way. She walked out of here and back on the plane and back to D.C. The real cool part, the other really cool part, she gets back to D.C. The other reason she wanted to get back, because that's where she had to go back to another appointment, too. She had to get back to Philly. We were trying to work it out where she would come back here. But she goes back to Philly, people. She goes back to Philly and goes to her appointment. No cancer. Completely gone. We realized that in the bathroom, because she kept, where that tumor was located, her eyes would always drain, right? And she would always have this drainage coming out of her eyes and her nose. And she would blow her nose all the time, you know? And we were kind of worried about that. But I remember, we didn't think much of it because I thought it might be blood or something, right? But it was this black stuff she was blowing out of her nose. It was the cancer. She literally blew it all out of her nose in our house. And when she went back, clean bill of health and whatnot. And they didn't know what happened. None of the doctors, right? None of the doctors knew what was going on. She was clean, right? But unfortunately, she went back to that environment up there and grew another tumor. And I knew it. I knew it when she left, that she needed to stay here and locked in. But she was determined to go back, you know. And so she went through that again, and the tumor was almost in the same place. You know, it was a little bit behind her ear this time. So she ended up having surgery, and they took it out. They got rid of it again. So she went for a long time without any issues, and to today, no more cancer. No more cancer. However, I believe partly between, you know, I don't know if anybody's been to D.C. I'm pretty sure many of you have. D.C. has a really, you know, bad stronghold, a really bad spirit, and it is thick. You know, there's times when we would go home and we're saying we can't be here more than a week because of that spirit that's happening there. It's really thick. You know, it's visit, get out, you know, type of thing. And even my brother, when he was here, you know, they could feel the shalom. You know, the first thing out of his mouth week before last was, "I can't believe how relaxing, how peaceful, and how friendly the people are," because they're so used to that environment up there. So it's so stressful, and I'm pretty sure other cities are the same way. But I know I can only speak for D.C. as far as that goes. But that's a little tidbit, and I honor my mom right now. You know, I love her. She has taken, I say that she's a picture of Christ to me, because she's taken all of the junk and all of the stuff from the entire family, you know. And the evil voice in me a lot of times is like, you know, you want to just straighten people out, you know, when it comes to dealing with certain things, you know. But my mom, I felt like she has taken on all of that stuff, and she has been a soldier, and now she's in a state of incapacity. You know, she's kind of incapacitated. She's in an assisted living place. My brother's doing a phenomenal job. I honor him as well. He takes care of her, watches over her. My sister called us a couple of days ago with mom, so we had a chance to see her via the video and stuff like that. But she's in that state of, you know, I don't claim all of those titles, you know. I just say that she's taking on a lot over the years, and now it's time for her to rest and for us to honor her and take care of her. So, Mom, yeah, if family's watching, I love you. All right, I'm gonna move on. We'll move on. So we have, so I have a brother, which I mentioned a little earlier, a brother and a sister personally. One brother, one sister. I did find out, just transparency and without getting into the Lashon Hara of it all, I did find out I do have 2 other siblings that's at home. We're trying to, actually when my brother came down, we're trying to work that out and figure out how we can build a relationship there with my brother, another brother and a sister. But I have a brother, Ronald, who's here, and my sister, Michelle. I'll show you pictures shortly. And Vanessa, her family, she has 2 sisters. one Angie and one Joe. We call her Joe. Her real first name is Leslie, but we call her Joanne. Joanne. Joe. So, and these are pictures of my brother and sister on the left, and Vanessa's siblings on the right, top right there. That's Angie in the middle and Joe on the left. Some of you have met a couple of them and whatnot. One pretty cool story with this picture here is that picture of Vanessa, Angie, and Joe, if I'm right. It's kind of neat, and I didn't realize it till later. And I should have probably put it in here. There's a picture that they took when they were probably, I don't know, probably really young, like 5, 6 years old. Exact same picture. Meaning, what I mean is they were in the same, you know what I mean, with Angie in the middle, Vanessa on the left. So they've done that like 3 or 4 times. I thought that was pretty cool to see that. When I looked at it, I was like, you realize you guys kind of position yourself in the same, same position and whatnot? And she's like, yeah. So my brother, like I said before, I'm proud of him. He's come a long way. He's struggled throughout life. He's having a little bit of a shift in his life as well, where he's really wanting to seek God more. And we've talked a lot more over the last couple of years than we've ever talked before and whatnot. We struggle with my sister. She's in the world is the best way to put it. And she's at home with my dad and 5 kids. And so I have 5 nephews, and it's kind of nephews and nieces. It's kind of cool, though, when we get home, they all connect to us, really well. I kind of fell in love with my niece. Her name is Leah, believe it or not. And we connected really well. And then his other daughter, which is a tribute to Charles a little bit, his daughter's name's Heaven. Her daughter, I'm sorry, one of the daughters' name is Heaven. And I thought that was pretty cool. And she really connected with Hannah like big time. She wouldn't let her go while we were home and whatnot. So it just told me that we need to be better and do better with contacting and giving these kids a connection, right, with the Lord, because they're not really seeing that so much, right? And I felt like when we were home, there was a light that was shining through my family to them. And they really were curious, and Leah is begging to come down here. She's begging, and I'm trying to work it out where she can come down here and spend time with us. But this is part of that restoration I was mentioning earlier, restoring of my family from a distance. And when I did want to mention that, so my mom was raised in Maryland. My dad's actually born and raised in Virginia, but lived a long time in Alabama before moving back to D.C. And I believe, Vanessa, your parents was all Maryland, pretty much. They were all born and raised in Maryland and whatnot. Let's see. So moving on, we have our kids, right? So we have Danisha, James, and Hannah in that order, right? And I want to share something with you in a few minutes, but so these are some pictures from a while ago. The one on the right, starting on the right, is we were in Germany. That's in Germany. We were stationed for the military. Love Germany. If you ever get to go, like awesome place to be. But that's James when he was little, and Danisha, little one as well. And then that's Danisha grown in the middle, grown up. And then you can see that 2 of the siblings are pretty close. Right, 2 of them, Hannah loves her some James, and James loves him some Hannah and whatnot. So they are very, 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 very tight. We've had our ups and downs. There's a testimony, and I don't want to get too deep into that, but Danisha is right there, guys. Keep her in prayer. Keep her in prayer. So the little one that I have with me that you see all the time is her daughter. Her name is Atara. So check this out, right? I'm trying to learn my lesson, and how they say, don't try to avoid, just try to meet people where they're at and try not to evangelize, the Jews like that, So just building a relationship with Danisha in general, her daughter wants to be here, Atara, and actually Yeah. Well, anyway. Atara she basically calls every single Friday. You coming to get me? You coming to get me, Abba? Softa, you coming to get me? We going to church? And for the most part, yeah. Sometimes we get a little busy and we're not able to pick them up. But I feel like, and if Danisha's watching, great. But Atara is almost that gateway, and here's a really cool part too. Her little sister, and I think I got pictures a little coming up next, but her little sister, Eliana, now wants to come too. But I said, not yet. Maybe I shouldn't say that, but Ellie wants to come too. So you'll probably see her here really soon as well. And then she also has, and I'll show that picture as well. We also have a little, so Danisha has five. In our family, I don't think most of my cousins, even though going backwards a little bit, my mom had 12 brothers and sisters. And each one of them, though, averaged around 3 kids apiece. But those kids had way more. So we did the count. The last count out of the 12, 57 of the cousins and so forth. There's a bunch of them that are all in D.C., Maryland area, all of them. It was kind of cool when we went home last Thanksgiving. My brother invited me out to go bowling, and about half of the cousins showed up when I went home, and they were all in the bowling alley. We took pictures and all stuff. I had an aunt that showed up and whatnot, and that was really cool. But yeah, so, keep, the Lord's working through our grandchildren, and my son too as well, and I love the relationship between those three. We had, when my brother was here, it was one of the first times we had everyone in the same house at the same time, and it was awesome. It was awesome. I took a moment and did what I just did and kind of teared up a little bit because I was like, wow, Lord, you are restoring and working and preparing them for something big, right? And so I'm so grateful for them. Hannah is Hannah's a miracle. I want to talk about her for a minute. So we didn't have Hannah till late. We didn't expect that, right? Vanessa had a medical condition, and at that time, and one of the things, the medical field, one of the benefits of working in the medical field, you can see the real deal. You could tell the baloney from the real stuff, a lot of time. And so anyway, they were asking us, they kept asking us, do you want to have more children? We had Danisha and James at the time. And we were like, we don't know, maybe, maybe not. We're not planning on it, but maybe not. So, but they were adamant about, doing certain things to make it where we wouldn't have another child, right? And we were like, we were struggling with that. We had just started returning to the Lord as well, I'm gonna get into that story a little bit as well, but we had just kind of started hearing from the Lord and, and doing things, and we were struggling with that, that whole thing, because Vanessa needed to have, have surgery. But I felt like we heard from the Lord, and it was like a resounding no and whatnot. So we didn't do it, right? She had her procedure, we came through it, she healed, went through the whole deal. About within a year, pregnant, right? Pregnant. Everything the doctors was telling us was completely wrong and whatnot. They wouldn't even say she would be able to have her naturally. She had her naturally. She carried it the whole time and whatnot, and had her naturally. We had a picture, we have a big portrait that we used to have on the wall. And it was kind of weird, we had never noticed it before. We had this big picture that we had on the wall for a long time. It was us, Danisha, James, and was Pierre in that picture? I think it was Pierre, our dog. Right? What kind of dog you think Pierre was? Poodle. Right? I think I might have a picture of him. But Pierre, we had Pierre 19 years. And Pierre was a member of the family and whatnot. But anyway, we had this picture, and it was kind of weird because there was this space in the picture. And it was almost like a person was missing, when we looked at it again. And we were even, Vanessa was collecting these, when we were in Germany, she was collecting these figurines called yard rolls. You ever heard of those? So she was collecting these yard rolls, and we did it in our own little way. We would buy one when it looked like our family. So we bought the boy when he played basketball, so we bought the little basketball figurine. Danisha was dancing, we bought a little ballerina. When we got married, we kind of, you know what I mean? You guys get it. We were buying these little figurines. Well, one of these figurines had another girl in it, right? But we really wanted that figurine, and we bought it. So for a few years, we didn't have that third girl or that third child. It would not. So come spin forward, and the dog, right? The dog is in there too. And come spin forward is kind of neat. Boom, here comes Hannah, and it was kind of neat how to see that. And we were like, that's the missing person in that picture. Wow. And we took down that picture after that and got rid of it. And added some other ones and whatnot. I thought that was kind of neat that occurred. So Hannah is a blessing. She's, I felt like, she's that one that gave me another chance. Because with the older one, some of that ugly stuff that I was telling you about that was probably in my dad and in our family, some events, that came out through me, Some things that you just said, that'll never happen, or that'll never, it happened. Some of that nastiness poured out into the older kids. And they struggle with that. They had a hard time. And to today, I think they still struggle with a lot of those times and events. So I didn't understand that back then. And this is, they say BC, they like to say BC, before Christ. Not really, because I was always with them. And I just wasn't listening. I just wasn't paying attention to what the Lord was trying to tell me during that time. But we're blessed. Our kids are all here in Tampa. You know what I mean? I mean, they could be totally somewhere else doing something else, wouldn't have anything to do with us, but they're here and they're connected. They may not be here in Beit Tehila, but they're connected with us, and I'm grateful for that and whatnot. So I'm gonna move forward a little bit. I did want to add this. I was telling Pastor Russell and a couple people about this. This is something that I discovered, right, within our family. I think God knew our story from the day I was born. At least he knew my story, right? Of course. Duh. He knew our story before I was born. So I was born on the Sabbath. I didn't know that. I was born on the Shabbat. So the Sabbath is what? Rest, right? Did anybody hear rest today? The Shabbat, the video. Remember I saying the Lord showed me that video earlier? In 1964, 1964. Seems so long ago. 1964. And then one day it was on a Shabbat. We were talking as a family. We was like, I wonder what our Torah portions are. I heard Mike Cromwell always talk about, do the Torah portion on your Torah portion when you were born, not during that year, but when you were born. So we started looking up our Torah portions. And this is what we found, right? So my Torah portion was Vayigash. It's interesting, right? And he approached. I think that's Jude approaches Joseph, isn't it? That Torah portion. And then, so it was, and he approaches. And then Vanessa's is Bamidbar in the wilderness, right? Danisha's was Mishpatim, which is ordinances. James was Re'eh, C. Eddie said that earlier, C. And then Hannah was rest. Is that a coincidence? I don't think so. I really don't. So what I did was, if you can see at the bottom, what does that say? I put them all together and it says, and he approaches in the wilderness to receive ordinances and see his Shabbat, his rest. Right? I was like blown away when I saw that. I was like jumping around. I was like, what? Look at this. This is cool. When we saw that, I was like, that is not a coincidence. And then, so to me, I was sharing this morning too, was listening to Shlomo Katz. Sometimes he puts a little thing on YouTube, and we watch it sometimes. He has a really good time with men and teaching and talking. And he was talking about Shabbat and rest, you know. So I throw this out there to you guys. When he was talking about rest, he was saying 6 days God created, right? He's creating life. The world, plants, animals, he's creating life. 7th day he rested. His point was, without the 7th day, you have no life. So I said, man, to me, I was born on the Shabbat, I need to know the Shabbat. I need to honor the Shabbat and really start digging into this thing and understand what exactly is he saying the will. And then when you look at our Torah portions, how he pulled us out, as I tell you these stories, he pulled us out, guys. He approached us. I'm going to probably jump around a little bit, but when we got here, we had gotten a taste of Torah through Rabbi Messer, Pastor Russell's dad. We got a little taste of it almost 4 years prior or something like that. And we get here, and we had gone to another church that just gotten Hebrew roots in Texas. And that church, when they got Hebrew roots, Rabbi Messer showed up, and he shared a lot. It was like too much, almost like the fire hose, syndrome, where you're just pouring it in. But the one thing that we didn't catch was the Sabbath, right? We were kind of understanding the feast days and things like that. But until we got to Beit Tehila, and believe it or not, I fought against coming to Beit Tehila. That's another whole thing, right? But until we got to Beit Tehila is when we really had an understanding of the Shabbat and rest, right? And that changed our life, of course, just like probably many of you. That changed our life. So now, in retrospect and looking at this, how he approached us in the wilderness, in the world, another little quick story is when we got here in 96, the Lord blessed us with the house that we have right now, right? Which was in 98, actually. He blessed us with the house. And when we were getting the house, I said, Lord, give me this house. I'll go to church, Give me this house, And it was not something that we thought that we could do back then in the 90s. They had this thing that all the homes were like $99,000. There was a lot of houses you can get for like $99,000. Can you believe that? Like looking now, $99,000. We were like, yeah, we're gonna get a place, $99,000. So we made the mistake back then and started looking at bigger houses. We were like, okay, we stick with the 99. We saw this bigger place, and of course, spinning forward, we found this home. We actually saw it originally up there near where the Toledos live, and that house up there was like, back then it was 300 plus, right? But the lady that was there, she was like, well, if you go over to Brandon, Valrico, it's all about location. This same house is half the price over there. So we drove over here, and I was like, man, I'm not driving all the way, to get a house over there. But we looked at it, and man, it was kind of one of those moments, right? It was like, get it, just go for it. So we did. I prayed to the Lord. I was like, Lord, give me this house. I'll go to church. So of course, we got the house, right? I didn't go to church. I didn't go to church at all. Farthest away from it, So let's see, we were there probably 3 years or so. And then at the same time, Vanessa was still in school. She was finishing up her degree, and she finished up her degree. She was working as a civilian on MacDill Air Force Base. And I was still in the military at the time. And when she finished her degree, I was kind of pressing her a little bit. You got that degree, you spend all this time, you do something with it, So she did. She did something with it. I asked for it. And so she applied, put in 3 different packages, as you say. One was to the military, what they call officer training school. One was to a medical corps thing, military as well. And then another one was a civilian package, working for the government in the civilian part. The officer one came through first, right? She got it. So what did that mean? We would have to leave, right? She went through her version of basic training. I'm mad because I got to leave, right? I was like, I don't want to leave this house. And went up, and she's like, well, you got to go, you know. So again, I was kind of fighting her on it. I didn't really want that to happen. But then the Lord, he came to me, and he said, what do you think? Remember what you asked? Remember what you said you'd do? Get out. So he picked us up, and thank the Lord, thank you, Father, he didn't take the house. He didn't take it from us. He actually put people in our path that we rented to. We ended up having 3 renters during the time, and that's usually a nightmare scenario when you're renting out to folks, right, a lot of times. But he put 3 people in our path that literally took care of the house better than we did. And we were out 7 years, guys. We were out of the house 7 years. 7 is completion, right? Still couldn't get back in the house after the 7th year. We did not move back in until the 8th year. New beginnings. And I was here, we were already here in Beit Tehila by then. And so I kind of jumped ahead a little bit. But that was another little testimony of the house. And little did I know with the home, he would use it the way he's using it now. Because it's not, now I see that house completely not like I saw it before. You know, I see it now because he's blessing us with mikvahs. We do baptisms. We've had Shabbats. We've had feast days, Hanukkah, you know, all this other stuff. And I realize now it's his. It's not mine. It's his house, you know, and he'll use it for his pleasing. And I better keep my vows, right? And what I did. But yeah, he didn't take it away. I thought that was another miracle in our life that he could have just easily just taken it, you know, and it was crazy because when we started getting Torah, when we moved to Texas, one of the things that really popped out, they did like these, I don't know, I don't want to say like horrifying teachings, but he did these teachings on like Revelations, you know, that the old like, you know, black helicopter, whatever. But he also did a teaching on Deuteronomy. I think we got there doing Deuteronomy. A rabbi was teaching Torah 101, and they did this teaching in Deuteronomy. And in Deuteronomy is the blessings and the curses, right? And he started reading the blessings and the curses, and I was like, oh man, like, oh man, you know, those curses was like jumping off the pages at me, you know. And it was like, wow, you know, but he did not take it away. Thank you, Lord, for that and whatnot. But we'll kind of, hopefully the rest of this presentation, you'll see how this also, maybe you're already seeing how this played out in our family and in our lives, because he approached us, you know. I'm telling you guys, once we left here in the 90s and through Vanessa's military career, and we got to Texas, to San Antonio, Texas, he was speaking, man, he was just speaking to me like nonstop, you know. And it was like the goal was, once we got there, I was like, I already knew where I messed up. We had to find a church. It was like, there was no way around it. We had to find a church and whatnot. And guess what? My supervisor, as soon as I got to San Antonio, hey, I got this church I think you'll like. I hear you listening to Christian music. So she actually recommended the church that we ended up getting Torah from and whatnot. So I'll get into that a little bit. But so back to the family a little bit. We got our grandkids here. So I mentioned it earlier. So if you go to the top right and left, so you got, listen to this, right? I said, you know, about our oldest daughter, right? It's something about those firstborns, right? Those firstborns. But she named her kids. Look at the names. She named all of her kids biblical related names. So you have Jeremiah, Benjamin, Atara is crown, Eliana, And the last one is Thaddeus. I was like, okay, what's that? I'm gonna have to look that up and find out what's going on there, with their names and whatnot, and what's going on in her family. But these are them. You've seen Atara here. She's on the. She's actually in the middle, saying, "Grandpa, get me," and that, in the cart there, and then that's her in the bottom right. That's my baby girl. And then again, we have Jeremiah Jackson, and Benjamin. And Thaddeus is actually on the bottom right. So I think that's pretty cool. Look at that. So me and Vanessa, we met in Maryland at high school, Suitland High School in Maryland in 1981. Back then, I fell in love, she didn't. Not yet, anyway, If she did, she kept it a secret. But we saw each other, and I'll tell you, when I saw Vanessa back then, it was almost like a television show or something. Here she comes walking by, and I didn't see her feet touching the floor. I just saw her flow by, And I was with my buddies, this little show, I called him Shorty, this guy named Shorty. And Shorty was like, he was talking to me and I wasn't paying attention. He was like, and then he hit me and he's like, you ain't listening to me, man. And I was like, did you see that? He's like, oh yeah, she's in one of my classes. What's her name, So he tells me her name. He's like, I said, I gotta have her, And he was like, well, go talk to her, So I did. I went and talked to her. I was in heavily into ROTC, junior ROTC, Navy junior ROTC in high school. So, I'm like in my uniform, trying to look all sharp or whatnot, trying to draw attention from her. And I did. I got her attention. So it's funny because I'd be sitting on the trash can, right? I'd sit on the trash can, wait for her to come by. I'm like, yeah, look at me. Look at me. Don't I look good? Yeah. But I would mess up all the time, I think one time I was playing around with her and I broke her gold chain, You remember that? I broke her gold chain and I was like I was going nuts, and I went home and I grabbed my dad's tool. I took a soldering iron and was like, I put it back together and I was like, hey, look what I did. She was like, I don't want that. So that's my baby. So yeah, we met there in high school. We've been together now, we figure, so our anniversary is next week. Our anniversary is next week. And it's going to be 35 years. 35 years. And that we've been married. We've known each other 39 years. And whatnot, since high school and whatnot. I left, I kind of maybe in my mind, because she gave me a hard time, man. You guys could give me a little sympathy. She would not come on board, And but I ended up leaving home when I joined the military, and kind of I don't want to say I gave up, but I kind of left it a little bit behind, because when I left home, I left for a multitude of reasons. Most of all is because I felt like God told me to. Even though I didn't have, like I said before, I didn't have this, real Shabbat experience with the Lord, but God has always spoken to me my entire life. Good, bad, indifference. He's always spoken to me. Even in the military, when I got myself in some stupid trouble a lot of times, he had mercy and grace, got me out of it. I had a successful military career after a lot of that young nonsense that I used to do back then. And God's always spoken to me. And he definitely spoke to me about my wife. And she has been awesome over the years. She continues to be awesome. She's up there blushing right now. I should get her up here so she can talk. But yeah, I honor you, babe. I love you. I appreciate everything you've done. You've given me beautiful kids. And through you, our grandchildren are watching you. I see them watch you. Yeah, it's just amazing. I wouldn't, like I said with my mom, I would not be, if, how you marry your mom, or like girls might marry their dad, per se, I think I married my mom, per se, because she keeps me on the straight and narrow, because I know how to jack it up. So again, we were married in '87, and it's been A good ride. It's been good. It's been awesome. It's been an awesome time together. You know, I couldn't ask for a better person to spend my life with. And I'll tell you this, even in the times of being a knucklehead myself, I better not say that, but but being a knucklehead myself, you know, she's always stuck with me. We've had, you know, I'm pretty sure all married couples have hard times. And one thing I think the Lord gave me in all of these conversations we've had back and forth is that I've always said to her, and she, you know, over recent years have told me, I told her, I said, divorce is not an option, right? I said, divorce is not an option. We better figure it out, you know? And so that's why I say I give her a lot of credit, because she figured it out. I might not have, but she did. And she stayed there and stayed fast and helped me to get Torah. And you'll see how she helped me to get to where I'm at right now. No doubt about it. Absolutely. So part of that, right, after being married, we get to Beit Tehila, right, and we're starting to really ramp it up. We're starting to learn and get everything in. And one of the most beautiful things that I saw was, I don't know how many people remember Joanne Wahlberg and their daughter, Felicia Rose, right? And I can't remember the dad's name now. Phil. So we're new at Beit Tehila, you know, and everything's happening so fast. Pastor Tikva is like, you're dancing. Bill's like, come on, you know. Conferences and all this other, I'm like, what are you doing? But one of the most beautiful things that I saw was a vow renewal with the Wahlbergs. That was the first time I had seen anything like that. And the vow renewal was a Hebraic, you know, setting. They did all of the things that you would see that we know, with the huppah, the salt covenant, and all this, you know, all of this other stuff that I had never seen. You know, I'm like deer in the headlight, you know, type of look, and I'm like, man, this is cool. And then Phil says, come on up and let's do the war dance. I'm like, war dance, you know. And I think Phil had that sword like Russell did. But anyway, we get up and I'm like, they're doing a war dance, and I'm like, you know. I don't know what I'm doing, you know, but we went through it, and then I got out. When I was done with that, it really impacted me during that ceremony. So as time went on, a few years went by, and our anniversary, I think it was our 25th anniversary, came up, and I tell you guys, the Lord really started pouring on me about renewing our vows and going through this and really doing it for my bride. So I just want to share this a little bit with you. So Yeshua, we learned through the Wallers and all these other, how the bridegroom, right? He's doing this, and he's got the bride waiting, and he's really doing it all. You know what I mean? You guys realize that, right? He's putting it all together. You're just sitting back waiting on the bridegroom to come, and we're not. So he really started pouring on me, man, about doing this renewal. And when I mean he poured it on me, I had, man, this is totally not me. I had like this huge spreadsheet with everything that we need and going to do and whatnot, and the prices. And with my wife, I had to do a PowerPoint presentation anyway whenever I wanted to spend money. You know, it was like, you know, well, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, and here's you need a pointer? You know? So, the Lord in there, he spoke to me, and he said, as the bridegroom, I need you to put together this wedding. I need you to prepare her for the wedding. I was like, wow, what does that look like, you know? What does that mean? So I'm telling you, I went out and found her dress. I went out and got our rings. The Lord even sent us 50 pieces of silver, right? Just everything involved in that wedding, the Lord was just bringing to me. He's like, do this, do that, do this, do that. You know, just have her just show up. All she has to do is show up. So after that, there's something that I shared with Hannah as well. I said, it's something to consider. The husband did all the work. You know, a lot of, in just my opinion, it's interesting that the bride's family pays for the wedding and in society. But in this situation, he kind of showed me that I should do it, and have her come alongside. I'm not making all the decisions, of course, but have her come alongside. Just something to mull on, something to think about. The bridegroom is getting the chamber ready for the bride, right? And I remember that old building used to be called what? You guys remember? The bridal chamber, right? It used to be called the bridal chamber. So it was like pieces of the puzzle was coming together for me when it came to being a bride. And then I remember, I'll never forget what Jim Galeros, who used to be here, he shared something about Proverbs 31. We always read Proverbs 31 over our wives, right? Right? Are you not the bride? Men? That Proverbs 31 description is us too. I was like, wow, that's pretty neat, pretty powerful. Once you read that in a different tone and look at it from a different angle, through a different lens, it's like, okay, this is what God's trying to tell me. So when I was, when we were putting this together, what an awesome time. We had an opportunity to even loop in some friends from the military. They actually helped set it up. Maria and Rick helped set it up and do everything there. And it was great. I wanted to share that with you, but you can see that I put restoration because I didn't have any idea of this concept, right, of the bride and the bridegroom. Not really, just the traditional worldly marriage, I guess you may say, but not in this tone. When the symbolism between the salt covenant, you can never be separated. The sharing, the breaking of the bread and the wine and the ketubah, right? Our ketubah that was made, it was like, man, that's like a one of a kind. You can't, and then the marriage covenant, guys, just, it's so important for our daughters to see this and to grab this and internalize it. And I know that Hannah's expectation is up here. I was like, man, good luck finding a husband. Because her expectations are way up high. It's going to have to be in here in order to find a husband. That's all I can tell her. I was like, well, it must be in here somewhere. Because what she's seen there. And like I said, and when we got our rings, which is what I'm wearing right now, it does say in Hebrew, that Song of Solomon 2:16, which a lot of people probably have rings similar to that, but it's really a special thing that the Lord shared with us. Okay, so moving forward. Say again? Oh yeah, that was her dress was actually, for what they call that, India sari? Yeah, sari, like sari dress. I think I was working with, I think I was asking some questions from Asha during that time, I think, a little bit. But yeah, it's like a sari dress, but it's beautiful, right? It's like, hey, you think you wear a sari? She was like, huh? But anyway, yeah, that's where that came from. All right, so real quick, some military. So we are a military family, right? I joined in 1983 and retired in 2007 from the military. Vanessa joined in 2001 and is still serving in the reserves. She's been blessed beyond. So, her story I feel like is better than mine because as far as for how, because Vanessa wanted to join around the time that I joined, but they told her no and would not because she had, I don't know, they called it water on the knee or something like that back then. But she had some technicality where they wouldn't let her join immediately when she wanted to join. And it was a passion for her. So as time moved forward, we got married and, did some things. She finished up school. She put that package in, boom, she got it. And she ended up joining as well and having her own military experience. For me, I knew that I wanted to be in the military when I was in high school. I went through if you remember what I said, I was in Navy Junior ROTC, but I knew I wasn't going to be in the Navy. The Navy was not for me, Reese. For you, not for me. But the Navy, I had the opportunity when I was in high school. It was awesome though. I was telling Hannah, I was kind of encouraging her in something she's trying to do. She started late in something because I started late in ROTC. I started in my junior year, and it just was my thing, the military. And I had the opportunity to go on what they called a cruise, orientation cruise. So we drove down to Norfolk, Virginia, and we went out for 2 weeks on the USS Josephus Daniels, which is a missile cruiser, right? And we could spend time with the Navy staff. We spent a week with the officers and a week with the enlisted, and that's when I knew no Navy for me. I am not going in the Navy. And whatnot. You can have that. But I did know I had an uncle and an aunt that was in the Air Force. And so I joined, as you can see, I joined the Air Force in 1983. I actually joined before I graduated high school. I was already signed up. I was in delayed entry. And so my time was already accumulating while I was still in high school to join the Air Force. A real quick thing about the Air Force as well. When I was in, I still remember I was saying I had a lot of junk still, right? I still had, we grew up in DC. DC at that time was in the high 90% black, African American, right? A lot of the nonsense that was poured in us, and I have no other words for it, was that separation of race, okay? When I was coming up, and I took a lot of that baggage with me somewhat. I didn't really agree with a lot of things that family and people were saying back then, and I wanted my own experience. And when I got on that plane in 1983, I could not believe I was getting on the plane. You know, I went on the plane and I was like, how am I going to do this? You know, and once again, I felt the Lord saying, well, this time actually, and I carried that throughout years. He said, I didn't bring you here to fail. Right? So I get on this plane. I have no idea what I'm doing. I really don't. I've never been on a plane before and whatnot. So I flew to Chicago, and then from Chicago to San Antonio. I go to basic training. I actually have an opportunity because of ROTC and basic training to leave basic training early. I could have gone to what they call tech school or to my job training right away, like if I passed this written test, right? So I say to myself, I encountered this guy that had done that. And he came to me, he said, hey man, you don't want to do that. And I was like, why? He's like, you don't want to do that because all you're going to be doing is picking up trash across the base and, you know, and doing base detail, cutting grass and all this other stuff. And San Antonio is hot, right, at times. So I purposely failed the test so I could stay in basic training, the regular basic training with the guys that I was with at the time. And even the TI, the drill instructor, DI, asked me, you know, I know you. There's no way you would have failed that test, you know. And I was like, well, I did, you know. I did, I'm staying. So I did, and I was real grateful that I did stay. I made some good relationships. So part of what I was leading up to, the guy that was bunking next to me was from West Virginia, the mountains of West Virginia, a white guy, right? And he kept staring at me, you know? He kept staring at me. Finally I was like, man, what are you looking at, you know? You know, and he was like, he said, he was real earnest. This is what really connected with me. He was like, please forgive me, man. I don't mean to. I've never seen a black man in my life, except for on TV. And I was like, man, get out of here, you know? You know, I was like, get out of here with that, you know? And he was like, no, I'm serious. He's like, I'm just, I don't really mean to, but I just do that. From that moment forward, we connected. He was a Christian, right? A believer. We connected. We helped each other out. He really had a hard time in basic training. He had an incident where he had anybody military knows you can't have food, right? Uh, and this was like a repeat of a movie that I won't mention, but this guy had food in his what they call security drawer, and it was found, right? Well, the food wasn't found until he had a newspaper that he had put in one of his drawers in it. You know how when you open a drawer and stuff fall to the back? Well, it fell through and it fell on the top of his drawer. And during one of the inspections, the drill instructor comes in and they're checking out things and they go to his. They didn't check everybody. They didn't check mine. They went to his. And they pulled open his drawer and there's a newspaper and they're yelling at this guy. They're ripping him a new one, And he cannot explain how the newspaper got into his drawer. It was a sock drawer or his underwear drawer or whatever. He couldn't explain. He kept saying, it fell through, it fell through. And they were like, how does a newspaper fall through a drawer? So they're like yelling at him. He takes out the drawer and dumps it and things are just going crazy in there, And he's like, it fell through, And I'm sitting there, I'm like, he's right next to me. And then the guy in front of me starts laughing. And I'm like trying to hold it together. I couldn't. I started laughing too, and then this senior airman, Lily, his name said, I'll never forget his name. Senior airman Lily gets in my face, and I was like, listen. And so I go over, after a while, I go over to where that guy is. I was like, it did not fall through the drawer. It fell behind, and I had to explain to him. He was like, go over there and give me, they used to have these things called military, what was it called? Military chair or something like that. You sit in the sit position with your back against the wall with no chair. We had to do that a lot. I had some strong legs after that. But anyway, the relationship that I made with that guy, we kept for a long time, and it was through the Lord, us supporting each other. I had a hard time when I got to my first assignment. I was in Alabama, of all places. But Alabama turned out to be the best thing for me at the time. And I learned a lot. I was very rebellious at Alabama. I should have probably got kicked out of the military from, in retrospect, some of the things that we used to do, fighting, drinking, cursing, swearing. I mean, I even told off my first sergeant, It got physical. I did what they call correctional custody. That's when you go into a building and they take the doors off the hinges. There's no doors, so they can see you, right? And I had an orange suit on, just like you're in prison, and you had to walk to the chow hall and stand in line, and everybody's looking, and you're going, mashed potatoes, gravy, and I went through that whole deal. But again, here's God. He shows up again. My supervisor, who's a Christian as well, pulls me into the office. I'm having I'm like rebellious, not, And he pulls me in the office, closes the door, and he says, you're going to make it. He says, because God told me to tell you you're going to make it. And I said, what? Because I'm ready to say, man, get out of here. I'm like ready, I'm like all jacked up and mean. And he's like, no, God told me you're going to make it. You're going to be fine. And I was, I'm still mad. And I'm even crying because I'm so mad, And so he says, and I'll show you why. So he takes this paper. He had this paper hanging in his office. And his office was clean. There was nothing on the walls or nothing, but this paper on his side of his cabinet. He pulls out this paper and he gives it to me. He says, read it, right? So I look at it. It's a paper of his annual evaluation that he got when he was where I was, right? And on his annual evaluation, he did the exact same thing and whatnot. And he was saying that, he says, you got more in you. He was just telling me all this positive stuff, You got more in you. You're better than this. You're better than this. You're doing something that's not you, and type of thing. So he kind of took me under his wing, and I still didn't really get it back then, but he did help me to move forward. And then I ended up leaving there. We got married not long after that, which is highly needed at the time. And we left Alabama. We actually paid to leave. The military didn't pay for that move. We paid for it because I felt like I needed to get out of there. And we went to Dover, Delaware. We were in Dover, Delaware for some years. I ended up flying. I don't know if I put any military pictures. Did I? Yeah. So from Dover, I went to Dover, Delaware. Was there for a while. I've always, like I said earlier, I was always a military guy, working in the hospital. When I joined, going backwards just a little bit, when I joined the military, I asked God, and it's crazy, you know, how rebellious I was, but I'm still talking to the Lord, you know. And I asked God, I said, God, I don't want to kill anybody. Check this out. I said, I don't want to kill anybody, right? I don't want to be out in the weather when I go in. And I don't want to fight Israel. I don't know why. I really can't explain why, but I said I did. That was one of my requests. It was written down. This guy says he don't want to do this, and he doesn't want to fight Israel. Not that that was a reality, but they put it down, right? Yeah, that middle picture was me first going in, basic training. So anyway, I go in, I get to Delaware, I start, God's opening doors. It was like a complete 180. I get to Delaware, I meet a guy, he starts telling me about flying, you know. That was my favorite position, right below the blue, the one where I got my glasses on. That's my favorite position. Sleep. But those were flights coming from Europe back to America. So they would be like, what, 12, 13 hours. We get a chance to take a rest. You had to have an oxygen bottle next to you. I don't know if you can see it. You know, so wild, you know, doing that. But that was my the best job I could actually ask for. And as you can see, the plane I used to fly on was a medical plane. So I was flying what they call medical evacuation back then, shipping basically an ambulance in the sky. Bringing patients all around Europe and back to America. Not the ones back to America wasn't in the C9, which is the top and bottom. They were more the cargo-looking planes that we used to configure in order to bring them back to the States and whatnot. Definitely my favorite job, and you can see bottom left. It was a true blessing. It just that changed my life. I met so many good people when I was in during that time. All right, and there's my baby. That's her, yes, that's her on the bottom left with her gas mask on. So Vanessa had her own story. I put in there, you know, remember those deploys. Many of you may remember that she deployed about a year and a half ago or so to Kuwait and whatnot. So, you know, her dream came true. God blessed it. That time went by so fast, and it was COVID too while she was gone, while she was over there. So God blessed it. It went by so fast. It didn't feel like it was as long as it was while she was gone, and it was just me and Hannah. So thank the Lord that it did go by fast. But she had a great time. I know she doesn't want to get up here and share or anything, but there's a video that she shared, and it's just two things I want to mention. The video I thought was really cool. She drove this huge forklift. This thing was, what do they call that thing? This thing was huge. I couldn't believe she was driving it, you know, and moving pallets around and whatnot with this thing. This thing is like as big as a semi-truck, you know. But the story I do want to share with you guys, so she's over there, you know, you never know where God's going to use you and need you, right, or wants to put you. So Vanessa's over there during Hanukkah, right? Was it Hanukkah? So she's over there during Hanukkah, and she really doesn't have much Torah as far as for, you know, connecting with anybody with Torah or, you know, or with the Lord. So she's over there, and she looks up and finds a advertisement where a rabbi is going to have like a service in relation to Hanukkah. So she meets this rabbi over there. Yeah, you need to tell this girl. You want to tell it? No? You need to tell it. But anyway, I'm gonna do my best. So she meets this. Come on, babe. You gotta say, come on. They're probably tired of hearing my voice anyway.
Okay, so keep it quick. While I was there during, I believe, was it? Oh yeah, so during the fall feast, so I remember doing my mikvahs at the pool. Got there at 5 o'clock in the morning when no one was there just yet. So did my mikvah in the pool. They gave me the Day of Atonement off, so I was able to be off on that day. And then during Hanukkah, there was a flyer out in the chapel saying that a rabbi was going to be there for the teaching, and I met him for Shabbat, thinking you would be other people there, believers like me, and I think it was probably about 4 or 5 other people there. But for Shabbat, that was on Friday night, but then Shabbat, he was going to be there for a service as well. I was the only one who showed up. So we sat there and we went over the Torah portion that day, and I spent like the entire day, and then he had a Havdalah service in the evening. I came back for that. And so it was just an amazing time. We sat down and we talked about the Torah portion, and he was just like blown away that I was actually conversing back and forth with him about the Torah portion and how much I actually knew about, the Torah and stuff like this. So it was just a blessed time, because that evening when I came back for the Havdalah service, we went through the candle, the drink. He played the piano. And he played some Eton Cats, and he sang, and he had the words up on the PowerPoint screen, and it was just the two of us. We just worshiped, and we spent like an hour doing that, and then that was the end of that. So it was pretty cool, because that Friday night we did do Shabbat service like in the lounge area, and there's a few people that showed up for that. But he bought the meal. He had cooked the meal and everything, and brought it all with him. And it was just a blessed time. I was just totally blessed that I could sit down with the rabbi and just, we just talked about the Bible. So
it was kind of cool, right? Because didn't one of the pictures for Hanukkah, you sitting there talking about Hanukkah,
yes.
And you're sitting right next to a
so
what?
Because it was in the chapel, right? I mean, they have somebody for every religion. So of course there's a Christmas tree right there in the chapel, and we sat down to do our study. It was a chair, and the Christmas tree is right here. It was just weird, but we sat there in front of the Christmas tree. He got a kick out of it. It was pretty cool.
Thanks, man. Thank you. Oh, here. Yeah, I thought that was pretty neat. So she went all the way over to Kuwait to meet with a rabbi and have some one-on-one with the rabbi over there. And when she was sending pictures, wow, that time flew by. When she sent pictures, I thought that was amazing. So I don't have a whole lot of time left. I said I wouldn't be able to make it, the time that they set, but I guess that time flies by. So yeah, that's sort of our military story. The Beit Tehila family, I know you like that. Get ready for Shabbat. I thought that was pretty funny. Yeah, and that's kind of our story as well. That's why I put that picture in there, is that, we, the Shabbat and the rest, when you remember that, he approached, he gave us the opportunity to see him, his heart through Torah, the feast days and whatnot, and he shared his rest with us, his Shabbat rest, and what that means to us as a family, and to our children and our children's children. We're really experiencing that. And the fact that God wants to meet with us every 7 days. He wants to sit down and get close and personal, and we struggle with that. We all, we do. At times you have a hard time. Maybe the kids are acting up, or the wife or husband's acting up, and you just don't feel too Shabbat-y. Somebody said something about Shabbat-it. We Shabbat-it. I think Pastor Russell said that, said that earlier this morning about the kids. He finally got the kids to Shabbat, they Shabbat-it. So we, from getting here to Beit Tehila is amazing. It's been amazing. I think the last thing I want to share real quick is that, even in all of those stories, and we get here, we met Rabbi Messer, we got Torah, we did all, really knowing the truth about a lot of things. We get here, we went to a Baptist church in Maryland, and there was a lot of stuff there as well. But even in the middle of all that, my wife was trying to get me to come here. And I was fighting it. I was fighting. I was like, she was like, I found this church, I think you'll like it. It's here, and then I'm going to show you next time we drive by it. So we're going down Lithia Pinecrest, and she's pointing, and all I see is this menorah out front and a dirt road and no building, right? And I'm like, are you nuts? I ain't going to that church. I said, that ain't even a church. I don't know what's down that road, Anyway, I'm not going to that church. But she put her foot down and she said, listen, and what was this, 2008, I think it was? She said, listen, because we had been church hopping. We went to Bell Shoals. I think I had settled on going to Bell Shoals, actually. And she said, listen, we're going to go on this day. Because she used to listen to, back then Paula White was doing quite a bit Torah teaching as well, related. I think she was being ministered to by Rabbi Messer as well. And she said, listen, I want to go on the Day of Atonement, right? She said, I want to go. It's going to be good. It's going to be special. We're going. You don't have a choice, We're going. And I was like, I guess I'm going. So we get ready, spin forward, we get ready, and we come. It's a Saturday, right? It's a Saturday. And like I told you, I didn't really get the rest part or Shabbat part per se. So it's a Saturday, and we head off, right? We come. We got Hannah. Hannah's like, like three years old. And we come, and we pull down this dirt road, and I'm telling you guys, I was like this. I was like, I can't believe I'm doing this, man. I can't, So we're driving down, and we pull in, and it opens up a little bit. Back then it was a lot of trees and stuff. And we pull in and we park right in this area, really, back then. We park, we get out the car, everybody's in white. Everybody's in white. I got on black. I'm like, white? I was like, why they got on white? She was like, I don't know. I got on white. It's like, everybody got on white. I was like, man, I'm going home. So she's like, no, come on, So we going in. I think it was Sherry that I saw first. She had on all. And she was like, hello. And then the second person we saw was Miss Libby. Hey, Will, like, yeah, this crazy lady. I don't know what's going on with her, but so we go in, and the place is dark. So we go into and it's dark in there, and they got on these Hebrew prayers on the wall there, and I was like, see, I told you, man, this is like Judaism and stuff. Told you, I ain't trying to go, I'm not staying here. So we go in, but then Paul Wilbur kicks in. I was like, oh, Paul Wilbur. I know that song, So it keeps, it goes in, and then I tell you, the Spirit of the Lord really hit me like a ton of bricks during those prayers and, and everything that was happening during that time. And as we continued that particular day, Pastor Nick and I'm like looking, because everything, so it was like everything in the church was like this area here, and I'm peeking down the down the aisle trying to see the screen and stuff, and pastors doing the liturgy and stuff like that, and I just knew it. It was like boom, a ton of bricks. Like I said, it was like, this is it. This is what we've been looking for. This is what we've been waiting on. And when she was like, I told you. I was like, when did I buy a parrot? I told you. But I was like, yeah. And I was like, then a lot of stuff started coming up, but I never hesitated and to make that change, because Saturday was a big deal, sort of, right? That's my mall time, man, sitting at home watching college ball and whatever, my time to goof off is Saturday. But we haven't stopped, right? We haven't, since that day, and I'm telling you, literally, that particular day, that next Saturday, we were here. And then it just went on and on and on, from Miss Libby attacking us on the road. Hey, you need to dance, So I was like, oh, you see that with a lot of people when they get here, right? They're like, you need to dance. Well, I ain't dancing. And whatnot. Then Pastor Tikva, scooped us up, Bill Carter, all of the dancers and the singers and everything. Back then, I'll tell you this, if people complain now about the time of the service, I'm telling you, man, we were, service was, Linda, 5, 6 hours. No kidding. But, the cool thing was it didn't feel like it. It really didn't. It was like going to Disney or whatever. You'd be like, man, it's already 8 o'clock, But it was, the services were super long, super cool. It was so good, right? I remember one time, whole service, 5, 6 hours, all Jimmy Black. It was like all Jimmy Black, we're dancing, we're exhausted. Pastor Tikva's just like, you sleep dancing. Because I'm dancing around and I'm like, man, just, hours and hours of dancing and worship. And it was just such an awesome, awesome time back then. And of course, the dance team, is part of restoration, of course. We read about it all the time. It's been restored in us. We're living out this. I love what Bill told me at one of the conferences. We're doing it. We're not just reading about it. We're not just thinking about it. We're doing it. We're coming in with the ark, Bill will probably tell you one day. We're coming in with the ark, and, we're coming in, and I'm walking. Tim was there with us, and we put it on the stage, and I'm like, and Bill, the reality is that we're doing it. We're not just talking about it or reading about it. He said, then is now, and whatnot. And that was so cool to really experience that, and we're still doing it. We're doing it. So maybe that's a message for someone. You're not just reading about it or thinking about it. You're doing it. You're doing it. When we do processions or have a chance to go out and work the property or whatever it is, because I don't know, I'm not a hands type of guy, but they had me out there cutting limbs and doing all kind of stuff. Now we camp, right? We camp every year. Just so many different things that God has for us to bring us together, just like that video during Shabbat where those families were outside and all together, praying over each other, connection, loving each other. Man, I don't know about you guys, I crave that. I do, I crave that. I want to be better with that as an individual and see that all come together, because that's a picture of heaven, I believe. So, again, these are some last pictures of what we, those feast days that God has blessed us all with, and my family as well. In Leviticus, he said, speaking to the children of Israel, and say unto them concerning the feasts of the Lord, which ye shall proclaim to be holy convocations, even these are my feasts. So again, this is kind of bringing it all in to the end there. I tried to find some relaxing pictures, resting and whatnot. I highly, as a side note, there's a little secret. A bunch of us have been there. It's a place up in Brooksville, right? Brooksville, Bushnell. It's a B&B. Check it out. That's all I'll tell you. And it's not just about, having fun. We've had encounters there and whatnot. We met some people. My time's up. I can't go all into it, but that place is called Our Father's Haven. Our Father's Haven. If you're ever interested, check it out, look it up. Totally awesome. But it's a rest place that you could go. And I'll end with this. And he approached the Bowman family, the Beit Tehila family, in the wilderness, that's all of my story, to receive his Torah, the ordinances. For us was on the Day of Atonement, here. And to see and understand his Shabbat, his rest. His rest, that's our story, guys. That's it. I did not think I would take that long. But I did. So Heavenly Father, I thank you for the opportunity to share our story. Hopefully, it's not our story, really. It's your story for all of us. I feel like it's our story, maybe told in different ways or different light or different events, but it's the same story, Father, because we're all here together as a family in Beit Tehila. We are family. And the minute that we understand that and realize that, the minute I understand that and realize it, the better off we'll all be that we're here together under one God, right? Under one God, the Holy One of Israel. We thank you so much, Father, for giving us a heart to be together and to be with you. Thank you so much for my wife and my kids and my mom and my dad and my family, my Beit Tehila family, my pastor, and all my brothers and sisters are here. We are brothers and sisters, Father. And as this great reunion that you're creating and reuniting us and restoring us, Father, I pray that it continues and that we all have the same energy as we move forward in your will, Father, the energy that just surpasses anything that could get in the way. Just tear down the walls that needs to be torn down, Father, and just, again, unify us and bring us together, Father, that we can just dance together in the New Jerusalem, right? That we all dance together and just glorify your name. And we just love you in Yeshua's name. Amen and amen. Thank you, everybody.